We're here today with Ara Malazian, author of The Money Diet. Ara, thank you for taking the time.
Jeremy, thanks for having me.
I know you've become extremely busy with the success of The Money Diet. I really got a lot out of it. Very helpful information for anyone. And I know also today our viewers are going to appreciate you going over some of the key points and elaborating on some of the financial situations that have helped come to shape your philosophy.
Well, Jeremy, in the end, it really comes down to balance. The whole model in The Money Diet is centered around balancing your life both personally and financially. Some of my happiest clients haven't been my wealthiest clients, but the ones who managed to live a life that was financially balanced.
How so?
Well, my happiest clients haven't necessarily been my wealthiest clients. They're the ones who managed to focus their time and energy on the things in life that are truly important to them. Their relationships with family members, friends, spending quality time that they enjoy doing while living a balanced life financially.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the model in The Money Diet is based on 5 easy steps that are designed to bring about a sense of healthy, happier existence. As a matter of fact, I sat down with a young lady just the other day to help her get started. So Mary, it seems like you take care of yourself.
Yeah, I try to go jogging or hiking 4 or 5 times a week.
Excellent. And do you watch what you eat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I eat organically when I can and avoid processed foods, fast foods.
Very good. And do you watch what you spend?
Well...
Okay. It's not uncommon. We have a tendency to really focus on our physical health, and we'll pay attention to what it is that we eat, but we tend not to do as well with our financial health. What I'd like you to do is start to equate dollars to calories. So if you eat too much and not healthy, you start to put on weight. And if you think of your income as your financial metabolism, or the amount that you can afford to spend, if you go over that or overspend, you put on the financial equivalent of fat, which is debt. If you stay under your financial metabolism, then you'll be okay and you can stay financially healthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, very good. If you had some way that you could track how many calories you ate in a day, where they just printed out a sheet and said, here's how much you just ate, would that be helpful?
Oh, that'd be great.
There's actually a requirement in some restaurants now where they're supposed to tell you these are the number of calories right next to the price, but you still have to do the math to figure out how much you just consumed. When we spend, however, we get a printed receipt that shows you exactly how much it is that you just spent. So do you tend to hang on to your receipts?
I usually throw them out.
Okay. Unless you're going to make a return, right? Then they're gone.
Well, actually, I do hang on to some of my receipts.
Well, that's great. How do you have them organized?
Well...
Okay, excellent. So it's a good start. You're hanging on to some of your receipts. The first step in the money diet is probably the easiest, and that is just stop throwing away the evidence. And what I want you to do from now on, every time you spend money, I don't care how small the amount is, just get a receipt and stop throwing them away. So once you've got them all together, just have a spot that when you come home, that's where they end up.
Okay, what do you suggest?
For me, I use a wooden box. I've got one that when I walk in at the end of the day, I just empty my pockets, all the receipts go in, everything from the car, I just stick it in the box until I'm ready to organize it later.
Okay, that sounds pretty easy.
All right, easy enough. The second step is then to get everything organized. And so what we'll do is put together some hanging file folders for each of your accounts, your bank accounts, your credit card statements, car payments, etc. And we'll have an accordion folder that's broken down by month that will then hold all of your receipts.
Okay.
Let's get started.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Now at this point, we've gone ahead and put together your hanging file folders. So we've got them for your savings account, checking account, rent, insurance, credit cards. Those are all organized now. We've also got your accordion folder that's broken down by month for all of your receipts. So we've got all that in one place. Now that we've got everything organized, I think we're ready to move on to step 3.
Okay.
With step 3, the idea is to take all of this information and get it into one place. There are several ways that you can do this. The first is to just take the spreadsheets from the back of the book and make photocopies. They're in the appendix, and just enter everything manually. The second way would be to download the spreadsheets from the website. It's at www.malazian.com, which is MALAZIAN.com. Or the third way, and the way that I prefer to use, is to use a financial tracking software package. For me personally, I like Quicken, and that's what I use. You can, again, download those files directly from the website at malazian.com. But if you can enter information into a check register, you can use the software. It's really, really easy to use. One of the other pluses to the system is really finding your information. So have you had anything break recently?
Yeah, I had an alarm clock. It broke just last week.
Okay. And was it under warranty?
Yes.
And when you took it back to the store, what did they ask for?
For the receipt, which I didn't have.
Okay. If you could find that in just a few minutes, is that something that would be helpful?
Yeah, I can do that with this.
You can do that with this. So as long as you entered alarm clock in the description, go ahead and run a search. Hit edit, find, and type in alarm clock.
Wow, there it is.
That's it. It's that simple.
That's awesome.
Pretty easy, right?
Yeah, very cool.
So as you can see, we set up our finances.
Yeah, that's a great first step. I find that empowering, when you're given some new information to help you better control your own situation. It's not that hard when you think about it, actually. It just takes a little bit of doing. So what was it that inspired you to create the concept of balance?
It's actually my clients having a difficulty finding ways to save. I created the whole model in the money diet and that concept of balance based on a system I was already using myself. And the concept behind it basically is this. If you think of it in terms of metabolism, all of us have different physical metabolisms. Some of us can eat more than others. We burn more calories. Others can eat less. Well, financially, it's similar. There are some people with higher incomes who can afford to spend more, and those who have lower incomes who need to spend a little bit less. But so long as your consumption, your spending, matches your financial or fiscal metabolism, that's how it is you maintain a balanced existence and a happy, healthier existence.
Easier said than done, I take it. So how do you do that?
You start with the most important things first. So what would you consider your most important expense to be?
I'd probably say housing.
Exactly. It's your home. It's where you wake up in the morning. It's where you go to bed at night. It's what protects you from weather, wildlife, unwanted guests. So I'm going to say it's your home. It's your housing expenses. What would you say your second most important expense is?
I'd probably say food then.
I'm actually going to have to disagree with you. I'm going to say taxes. And I realize I just said a dirty word, but I'm not going to debate how it is that our tax dollars get spent. But without taxes, we have no way to secure your home from invasion. There is no military. We don't have a police department to protect you from crime. We don't have a fire department to put out any fires. We don't have roads or bridges, water systems, all of the infrastructure that we need, the things that make life easier and worth living, you don't have without taxes. So taxes are actually your second most important expense. Now, we've been talking a fair amount about your housing expenditures and how it is that taxes can actually have a positive impact on your standard of living. We also mentioned food expenditures. Now, you've secured your housing, you've secured yourself from harm with your taxes. Obviously, you need to eat. What we need to make clear is that there's a difference between food and dining expenditures. Now, if you go to the market and buy a bag of pasta and some pasta sauce, come home, cook it up, that's food. If you go to a restaurant and pay $15 for a plate of pasta, that's dining. That's an entertainment expense. I want to make it clear that there's a difference between the two.
Well, that makes sense, but what about if we were to get food to go?
Well, it depends on how much you're spending on the food to go. If your income supports spending $40 to $100 per meal, then it's fine. If not, it's going to cause you to go out past your target expenditures on your food expenses.
I've been trying to tell Nancy we spent too much on food. She goes out of her way to make sure we're eating healthy, but ordering out all the time gets expensive.
Okay, how many times a week would you say that you eat out?
Well, I'm so busy with the kids all day long. I don't have time to cook every day. I would say maybe once or twice a week.
Or like 2 to 3 times a week, and we usually eat out on the weekends.
So 3 to 5 times a week?
I suppose that sounds about right, yeah.
All right. I can tell you one of the easiest ways to have an impact on your physical and financial health is with your food expenses. It's really one of the simplest ways to have a positive impact on your lives. That actually leads me to the next most important expense that we have, which is personal care. It's things related to the care and maintenance of you. Things like health insurance, doctor office visits, trips to the salon, beauty care products, anything that's related to the care and maintenance of you. So how much would you say that you spend on average on your personal care expenses?
Not sure exactly how much we spend on personal care. I mean, John has health insurance coverage through his company, but on personal care, not sure.
We disagree on this subject a lot. I tell her she's beautiful. She doesn't need to spend a ton of money on this kind of stuff.
Hey, takes a lot of time, money, and effort to look this good.
This isn't the first time that I've come across this. And it's not always the women that spend the most on personal care. Personally, I get up, take a shower, get dressed, and leave the house. But apparently now guys are out getting waxings and manicures and pedicures and beauty care products and all. I had no idea. My wife calls it manscaping, but apparently now men are spending a lot more on their personal care, and sometimes more than the women. The key is to not go chasing after some perfect ideal of beauty that you see in some magazine or on television. Dove actually did this great campaign called the Campaign for Real Beauty that kind of addresses this. They've got a real good video. Would you guys like to see it?
Sure.
Okay.
Very quiet, please. Camera's rolling. And we're recording now. Slate it.
So Jeremy, that beauty ideal that everyone is chasing after isn't even real. The woman that you see doesn't even exist. If you try to find her on the street, she just isn't there. Yet we still are constantly chasing after that ideal of beauty that we feel that we need to achieve in order to be attractive.
Well, so far we've gone over most of the essentials, I think, but it seems like we've left out a few things. I'm thinking like clothing, expenditures particular to male or female, those types of things.
Well, there are some good points that you bring up.
I mean, I'm thinking of one in particular. I seem to have arguments with my wife about clothing often, as far as how many pairs of pants you need, purses, pairs of shoes. I feel like I have enough pairs of pants to last me the rest of my life, but the argument seems to be the number of that type of thing.
Well, no discussion about finances is complete without clothing. And it's not gender specific. I've heard cases where it's the man that spends way too much on clothing and personal items and things like that. And then there's cases where, the woman spends too much. But in the end, I like to see my clients allocate about 5% of their expenditures to clothing.
5%? I don't think I'm going to be able to make that argument fly at all. That's pretty tough.
I wish I could say it's the first time I've heard it, but it isn't. And the reality is that if you buy things on sale and just buy the things that you need, it's a number that can be achieved. It's those impulse purchases of, these jeans look great, I got to get them, or I love those shoes, or this watch looks really good. Those are the things that tend to push us over the top.
How about cars, transportation and such, with the hybrids, electric cars, other types of alternative energy vehicles coming out? How do you see that as far as what is the smart purchase? Should you try to save up, buy a hybrid, and then again, you're having to make up that money over the time? It's like, how is that really saving you exactly?
That argument back and forth really comes down to gas prices. The higher gas prices go, the faster you make it up, the lower they are, et cetera. The real core to it, though, comes down again to how much of it you should be spending, and it should be around 5%. And again, I have people that do it's 5%, that's not possible. Well, you don't need a luxury car to get from point A to point B. You can do it in a compact car with better gas mileage probably, and still get there just fine. The key is really depending on where you are in the country. So if you're in Southern California, for example, you're going to need to own your own transportation because everything is so spread out. If you're in cities like New York or San Francisco that have excellent public transportation systems, your expenditures are going to be focused more on subway passes, rail passes, things of that nature. Other items that you've got to take into account, obviously we have utility expenses. Those are going to include your cell phone, home phone, cable, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we like to see a number of about 5% allocated to cover your utility expenses. And on occasion, I will get feedback, oh, there's no way, but you don't necessarily have to have the data plan with unlimited talk and web and text and all these other things on your cell phone. Or you can change carriers, or you can go to broadcast digital instead of having the $150 a month cable bill. There are a number of different ways you can adjust your spending to match your fiscal metabolism and still meet the needs that you've got.
So where do gifts fall in?
Gifts are actually very important. I recommend about 2% of your expenditures going to gifts. And gifts are basically the way that we show other people in our lives that are important to us how we care about them. It's possible to go way over that number, but ideally you want to try and stick to around that 2%. We keep talking about all the specific numbers. The model in the money diet, I've got a cushion for miscellaneous of 5%. So let's say you want to spend a little more on clothing or on gifts. You've got that cushion to sort of play with. But it's also in there because we tend to sort of lose track of where some of the money is going. And so that 5% can also help to make up for, well, I'm not sure where that extra $50 went this week, but all right, that'll go in the miscellaneous category. But gifts are important, and they should be included as part of your overall financial plan at about 2%. Up until now, we've been talking about the necessary expenditures in life. What we haven't gotten into are some of the extras. Things like your entertainment expenses or gift expenses, which can really push a financial plan out of balance. I actually sat down with a client just the other day where we were discussing about how it was his entertainment expenses were really starting to push his financial plan out of balance. So Jake, up until now, we've been talking about your necessities, your housing expenses, taxes, food, etc. What we haven't gotten into are some of the extra expenditures, things like entertainment. Now, you work hard to earn a living, right?
Heck yeah, I work anywhere between 40 and 60 hours a week, sometimes even more.
And you deserve to be rewarded for all that effort.
Darn right, I work hard to earn a living, I play hard.
Okay, very good. To me, I think it's very important that my clients reward themselves for all that time and effort they put in. Now, we're building a financial plan. What is it that funds that plan?
I would say me, my income.
Okay, exactly, and without you, there wouldn't be a plan. So I like to see my clients set aside about 3% of their annual income towards entertainment expenses.
3%? I could go through that in a month.
Well, based on what we were talking about, I got that impression. What are some of the things that you like to do? You mentioned outdoor activities.
Well, I like cycling, running, tennis, racquetball, and swimming.
Okay. Those are all great activities. Most of them, there's an initial expense, but after that, they don't cost that much to maintain. They're social, you can do them with friends or do them on your own. Why is it you say you couldn't stick to that 3%?
Well, come on, I'm a professional, I make good money, I live in a good neighborhood, and I like to have fun. I've been dating this girl for a little while now, and she expects to be treated a certain way. And whenever I'm out with the guys, I want to make sure we have a good time.
Okay. So, fine dining, nightclubs, golf outings.
Well, the way you say it, you make it sound like it's a bad thing.
I wouldn't say necessarily it's a bad thing, if you can afford to do it. But if it's going to take 10 to 15% of your income, don't you think that's a bit much?
Well, I'm young, I can make it up.
All right. Well, let me take you through a little exercise. Do you try and set some money aside regularly?
When I can.
Okay. Let's say that you're looking to set aside $50,000 to buy a property 10 years from now.
Actually, my plan was to buy a property every 5 years.
Okay, and what would you consider a decent return on your savings?
At least 6%.
Okay, an excellent goal. Just to be conservative, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the 10-year number. Now, at 6% over 10 years, if you started saving today, you would need to set aside about $320 a month, or around $3,800 a year, in order to reach that $50,000 goal. Let's say for whatever reason you couldn't start today, that you had to wait until 5 years from now to start saving. You would have to actually start saving about $8,900 a year, or $740 a month, to reach that same $50,000 goal. And the reason for the difference, it's almost 2.5 times as much, is because you've lost the power of all that compounding interest.
Is that what Einstein meant when he said the most powerful force in the universe was compounding interest?
You know, I've heard it before. No one's sure if he actually said it or not, but in principle, it's sound, yes.
So what you're saying is I need to cut back on my entertainment.
I wouldn't necessarily say on your entertainment, just your entertainment expenses.
How so?
Well, you mentioned you've been seeing this girl for a while.
Yeah, Mary.
Okay. Well, let's say that instead of taking her out for fine dining, does she enjoy cycling?
You know, I know she has a bike, but we've never really talked about it.
All right. Well, instead of taking her out for a fine dining experience, how about putting together a picnic lunch, going for a nice romantic bike ride?
I guess I could give that a shot.
Okay. There are actually a lot of ways that we can spend quality time with family and friends without having to spend a ton of money.
That makes sense.
Okay, wonderful. I think that if we can adjust your entertainment expenses, we can actually take a big step into bringing your financial plan back into balance.
So we are gonna go up to the second floor. I wanna go all the way across. So it's gonna be a full second floor.
Fireplace. here.
Fireplace, yeah, maybe a fireplace here.
Wow.
That would look nice, yes. Okay, fireplace. You wanna do nice windows here, maybe a jacuzzi here. That would look nice. You might wanna widen the backyard a little bit, add a French door, all that. Definitely, we need a water filter. Definitely a must. And then a built-in fire pit. Because Susie's house is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that all sounds great. What changes or adjustments are you willing to make to pay for all that?
We're not gonna make any adjustments. I was at Susie's house last week and she has a brand new, beautiful kitchen, all paid for. And she was telling me that I could get a kitchen less expensive, zero financing, or maybe refinance the house and pay for it.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I'm actually going to recommend against it. I mean, do you really want to erase all that principal and start over?
I don't have the same payments.
The payment will be the same, but you're going to end up having to pay for it for the next 30 years.
Yeah, but zero financing, it won't cost anything.
Well, it's still going to cost you something. You still got to pay for it. But very often companies will make the 0% financing look more attractive than paying for something cash. And what they're counting on is that you're either going to be late on a payment or miss a payment. And then they're going to charge you not just for the original item, but charge you all the accrued interest as well.
But Susie's really smart. She has all these rich friends and she goes to all these different places that I want to go to that are absolutely wonderful. In fact, she was at Saks Fifth Avenue for a shopping spree last week and she didn't have to pay for her airline ticket. She used her miles she had accrued on her card. It was perfect.
Well, I'm guessing Susie does a fair amount of spending to accrue all those miles.
I keep telling John we should do the same thing and we'll go on all these great trips.
I just don't see the benefit of going further into debt.
But we won't be going into debt if we pay it off.
Nancy, do you mind if I ask, is Susie married?
Oh yeah, she is. She married an investment banker. She did really well for herself.
Ben, that's Susie's husband. He can afford to pay off the card every month. I'm worried that we wouldn't be able to.
Has that happened before?
We still haven't finished paying off last year's vacation.
I think that John is doing the right thing. He's trying to keep you spending within your means.
What's the difference? We're spending the money anyway.
Well, I can tell you that spending on credit is kind of like taking drugs. It's very easy to start and very hard to stop once you've started. You tend not to feel it. You say, well, it's only $500, it's an extra 20 bucks a month, big deal. But those $500 start to add up over time. And that's how it is that people can end up in real financial trouble.
It's not like I spend all that much anyway. My friends spend way much more than I do.
Your friends are married to rich husbands.
Okay, that may or may not be true. There are people that I know who will actually spend far more than they can afford to just for the rush, and then they'll end up returning a whole bunch of things later on. Or it's possible that your friends are spending that amount, but it doesn't represent the same percentage of their expenses as it might for the two of you. It sounds like what we're dealing with is what I like to call possession and exclusion issues.
What's that?
I'd like you to talk a little bit more about possession and exclusion. Could you explain that a little bit more for me?
The concept behind possession and exclusion is really born from that person that we all have in our lives, or somebody that we know, who seems to start every conversation, every sentence starts with I. I have such and such. Oh, I have that one, but mine is better. Oh, I know that person. Oh, I've been to that place, or I went to that place with that person, or I got this. And that I is designed to establish ownership or possession, and at the same time exclude you from ownership or possession of that item or experience. And as people, naturally, it doesn't feel good. And it's not intended to make you feel good. It's intended to make that person feel better because they have something you don't, and make you feel worse. Very often, we'll head out after hearing this because we want what we don't have, and go out and make some purchase that we didn't need or we couldn't afford because we didn't like being excluded. We want to be part of that club. We want to be part of that experience. And it's not just something that happens with people that we know, that I crowd. It takes place in the media all the time. You need this item, or you need this product. You need to be driving this car to be sophisticated. You need to be wearing these clothes to be sexually attractive or sexually desirable. And there's been a successful link made in the media between material possessions and sexuality. The reality is that your sense of contentment, your sense of fulfillment, is going to come from within you. There is no item that you can purchase that is going to bring that into your life. It comes from within you. So when you're dealing with that, I have, I know, I went, keep in mind that it's not doing you any favors to fall for it. The key is to stay focused on the things that are going to make you truly happy, and to remember, there's no material item that's going to bring that happiness into your life. It's got to come from within you. What I'm going to do now is take you through an exercise to help illustrate what I like to call the psychology of money. So, Nancy, what I'm going to do is show you some photographs, and I mean, we're all adults here, so it's not going to be weird, but I'm going to ask you to choose one of the people in the photographs. Let's pretend the two of you have never met, and that this is just on its own, okay? And you know, John, you can play along too if you want. But, Nancy, let's say that I told you you had to choose. You've never met John before. You had to choose between one of those two men. Which one would you choose?
Well, if I had to choose, probably be the one on the left.
Okay. And for most people, that's the one they're going to choose. And it goes to your instincts. You know, he's this big, strong, handsome, strapping guy. And instinctively, your brain is telling me, well, if I have kids with this big, strong, handsome, strapping guy, then my kids will be big, strong, handsome kids and beautiful kids, and they'll keep having kids. So instinctively, your brain is telling me if I marry this person or if I have kids with this person, in all likelihood, my DNA, who I am, will continue on for several generations. Whereas with the other one, it may not work quite that way. Now, let's say that you had to choose between one of those two. Which one would you choose?
Definitely software developer. $1 million income annually, please.
Okay. So at this point, you know nothing about him, but you're making the decision right away based on one thing, on the finances, on the ability for this person to be able to provide for you financially. And that's where it is that things have changed in the last couple of 100 years. So before this, you made your choice based on that instinct. You know, for thousands of years, we've chosen our prospective spouse or mate, whoever, on the basis of, you know, how attractive they were to us physically, but also their ability to, you know, if it's a big, strong, handsome man, that he's going to go out, he's going to kill the food, he's going to build the cabin, he's going to bring it home, he's going to be able to provide for you and your family. But in today's society, the ability to provide for you is much more tied to someone's ability to make money than it is for their physical ability to go out and do those things themselves. So, you look at it this way, and it's the same two guys. So the one that you were ready to choose right away early on does okay. He's not making a lot of money, but he's doing all right. And, you know, drives his Honda Civic. He may be a really nice guy, would be a great husband, great father. The guy on the left may be a complete jerk, but mean to you and all kinds of other things. But there are people who would be able to get past that just based on the finances, at least initially, because they want to be able to have access to all of that wealth and all those material possessions. And that creates a natural state of conflict because your instincts are telling you one thing, this is the person that I want, but then your brain starts processing and saying, well, this person's really good at making money. They've got all these material possessions, so I want my children to be able to make money and be about money and continue to have money. And that creates a natural state of conflict within us. Now, let's say before you had met John, you're out with your girlfriend somewhere and some guy tries to strike up a conversation with you. What's the first question you're typically going to ask him?
I don't know.
All right, let's say it's one of your girlfriends and you're sitting there and some guy approaches her and you're going to screen this guy out a little bit. What's the first question you ask him?
Well, I'd probably like to know what he does for a living. That would be a start.
All right, so what do you do for a living? Basically, how much do you make?
And then I'd probably ask to see where he lives. Does he live alone? Does he live with his mother in the basement? Basement? Out.
Okay.
Neighborhood? What neighborhood? Then I'd probably check out what he's wearing, maybe see the car keys, what kind of a car he's driving. Those are all important things.
Okay, so everything that you're going through, all the questions you're asking are tied directly to finances. It's got nothing to do with whether he's a nice guy or a bad guy or funny or is he going to be good to her. It's all related to his ability to care for her financially. And at first glance, there are people that will hook up with somebody else just because, hey, he's got Porsche keys and he's wearing an Armani suit and Rolex, but the Rolex could be fake. The Armani suit's on a credit card and it's somebody else's Porsche keys. But that connection between material possessions and, oh wow, that's just who I'm after, is being successfully made today. And it creates that state of conflict that we were talking about. Now, John, not going to leave you out of all this. Let's say that you and your friends are out and you see two girls. All right, let's say it's these two girls. Which one are you going to choose?
This one.
Okay, we're adults here. This is, you take one look and you're like, oh, wow, this one, she looks like a model and all curvy, and this is it. But I'm going to say that there's going to be a qualifier. There's another question that John's actually going to ask himself. He's out with the guys, he hasn't met you. And, John, this is for one night. Do you really care?
No.
No, he doesn't. Guys, I hate to say it, but honestly, if it's for one night, who cares? We're going to see this person after tomorrow. Big deal. But when we're looking at the longer term, let's say that it was these two women that you came across. Now, which one of those two would you be more interested in?
Be more interested in the one that's worth 7.5 million.
Okay.
Or the one that's negative 100,000.
All right. And for men, as the same way that we have and women as well, same way we have an attraction to people with money because of that financial security and the ability to enjoy all the material possessions, we have an aversion to people that we feel are going to take from our money or our ability to enjoy our material possessions. And if we're looking to how it is that things are going to impact John longer term, guys are going to ask the same set of questions that girls do. Where do you live? What do you do? What do you drive? Because not necessarily we're looking for them to take care of things financially, but we want to know, is this someone who will be able to contribute to the household financially if needed? Or is this someone that I'm going to have to take care of financially? So in the end, if it's those two, now which one are you going to choose?
The clothing designer.
Okay. And the reality is that once you strip away the glasses and the designer dress and the plastic surgery and everything else from the girl on the right, she's really no more attractive than the girl on the left. And the same way that women tend to be looking for that sense of financial security, today for men it's very similar. They want to find someone who's going to be a life partner. Mm-hmm. But in the media today, there has been this successful connection made between material possessions and sexual attractiveness or sexual potency. So if the guy's driving the Porsche and he's wearing the Armani suit with the Rolex watch, well, He's basically making the statement, well, my manhood is so potent, look at all that it's gotten me. The woman that's in the convertible Mercedes with the Gucci bag and the Chanel glasses, well, my sexuality is so sweet, look at everything it's gotten me. But the reality is that one's got absolutely nothing to do with the other. So you can have all this material wealth, but it's got nothing to do with your sexual potency or how attractive you are to the opposite sex. You either have it or you don't. And that's what it is that I like to call the psychology of money. The issue today isn't just that we have this merging of material possessions and sexuality in modern society. It's how frequently that message gets reinforced and how often it changes. In the old days, you had maybe 1 or 2 chances a year in which to promote your product, either in the Sears and Roebuck catalog or the Montgomery Ward catalog. Today, I can hit you 20, 30, 40 times a day with my message if I'm willing to spend the money. Between television, radio, the internet, magazines, newspapers, if I want to sell you my product, I can deliver and reinforce that message to you several times a day. That's not the only issue. The other issue is how frequently the message changes. What is considered beautiful and attractive and sexually desirable today can be changed by tomorrow. Someone on top today can be brought down by tomorrow, then brought back up again by the next day, based on the speed with which we are exposed to information.
You'll look younger, smaller, lighter, fuller, tighter, thinner, softer. It really works.
The media at this point in time, between television, radio, magazines, the internet, has done an excellent job of making the link between particular items and an individual's sense of sexuality or sexual desirability. And when you start to look at things that way, that an object is somehow or another related directly to your sexual potency, you start to go out and spend money that you don't have on things that you don't necessarily need. That's something that's going to come from within you, not from something that you can go out and purchase. And it's a message that we get bombarded with constantly on a daily basis. We've talked about balancing your consumption, the psychology of money, possession and exclusion. What we haven't talked about yet is one of the most important parts of your financial plan, savings. It doesn't matter most how you're saving. What matters is that you're saving. Savings accounts, CDs, money markets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, UITs, REITs, money set aside for real estate down payments. So long as you're doing something to secure your financial future, that's what matters most. Savings are as important to your long-term health as physical fitness and a proper diet. Without savings, you're not going to be able to maintain your standard of living into your retirement years. That can lead to increased stress and have a negative impact on your physical, mental, and spiritual health. So it's extremely important that you set aside at least 10% of your income towards savings in order to secure your financial future. So Mary, you've been doing a great job keeping track of your finances. Are you feeling like you're starting to get a better handle on things now?
Somewhat. Somewhat. I still feel like I just can't seem to get ahead. I'm tracking where it's going. I understand how it's going, but I just can't seem to get it under control.
Okay, well, I think you're ready for step 4, which is called the money fast. And the concept with the money fast is basically similar to a physical fast, where you sort of cleanse and purge your system of all the toxins and extra waste. We do the same thing financially. And the idea is to get rid of any bad spending habits or things that are pushing your plan out of balance. You ready?
I'm ready for anything. I'm starting to get frustrated.
All right. Well, we know how much you make every week, right?
Yes.
What we're going to do first is calculate your discretionary weekly disposable income.
What's that?
Your discretionary weekly disposable income, or DWDI, is the amount of money that we're going to set aside for all of your extra expenditures that are non-essential over the next few weeks.
Define essentials.
Rent, food, gas.
What about clothing, going out, gifts, all the other expenses?
DWDI.
What? I can't. There's no way I can do that.
Are you ready to start getting healthy?
Yeah, but... Well, wait, how much is my DWDI?
Okay. Well, let's say, for example, that you were making $3,000 a month. We're going to take 5% of that number, or $150, and divide that by 4, which gives us $37.50.
Are you kidding? You expect me to get by on $37.50 per week?
Not permanently. This is just for the next few weeks to help bring about that sense of financial clarity.
What if I see a pair of shoes I really want?
Okay. How much are they?
Say $75?
Well, then for the next 2 weeks, you would have to save all of your DWDI to get the shoes.
Can I just get them now and then not take the money out for 2 weeks?
No, that's not the way it works. We tend to make impulse purchases, and very often that's what pushes our plan out of balance. So if there's something that we really want, we'll find a way to save for it so that you'll be able to get it. The idea is to really bring about that sense of financial clarity so that you understand what's truly important to you financially versus what you think is important to you financially.
At this point, I'm ready for anything. I just really need to get things under control.
All right, excellent. Here's what I want you to do. On Monday, I want you to go to the bank and withdraw $37.50. For the next week, everything that you're going to do, if you're going to go out with friends, go ahead, but that's going to come out of your DWDI. If you get a craving for a designer cup of coffee, DWDI. Blended juice drink, DWDI. Got it?
Got it.
All right. At the end of 4 weeks, trust me, you're going to feel better. You're going to have a much better sense of what is important to you financially versus the things that you sort of think are important to you financially. So, John, Nancy, we've had a chance to go over all of your expenses at this point, and after having reviewed everything, I think there are a couple of changes that we can make to bring your financial plan more into balance. I think two of the easiest ways are going to be for us to sort of change how it is that we're dealing with your food expenses and some of your personal care expenses. We had mentioned that you're going out between 3 and 5 times a week or picking up food. I think if we can change that so that we're preparing more meals at home, we can save you between $20 and $60 per meal. And if we multiply that out by the week, that's $100 to $300, and over the course of a year, $5,000 to $15,000 that we can knock off of your expenses. So do you think that for an extra $5,000 to $15,000 a year, we can make that change?
I think so.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be stressful. You can alternate cooking nights. You know, one person cooks, one person cleans. Or you can cook together, you know, and clean it up together, whatever works. There are lots of easy to make recipes, so it doesn't have to be stressful. Have fun with it. One of the other things that we talked about.
You did say something about personal care expenses?
Okay. When we talked about personal care expenses, I had asked how much you were spending on it, and there was a little bit of hesitation on the answer. So I'm guessing that we're maybe spending a little more than we need to in that area?
A little.
Okay. Some of the adjustments I would suggest we make here. If you're going to the salon every 2 weeks, let's make it once a month. You know, manicures and pedicures. I realize it's not as much fun as going out for a mani-pedi, but if you take care of more of that personal care at home, you can actually save quite a bit of money. Also noticed that there was a fair amount of workout equipment around the house, John. Do you use all this stuff?
Not really.
Okay. I know on the infomercial it looks great, but the key is to not fall for the hype. The gym membership that you have, you mentioned that you have, do you use it?
Not really.
Okay.
But we will soon.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, there are lots of forms of exercise that you can do that don't require a gym membership. So if you start finding an activity that you enjoy doing together as an exercise, you can actually save $100 a month on your gym membership and do something that's good for both of you physically. That, along with if we can shave $150 to say $250 a month off of your personal care expenses, that's going to save us almost $5,000 a year. So combined with just those changes, we can save $20,000 or more per year off of your expenditures, which can then go to your long-term financial health, which is your savings. So for an extra $20,000 a year, do you think we can make those changes?
I think so.
Great. All right. Have a good one. Thanks. So just remember, your sense of happiness, your sense of contentment, your sense of fulfillment comes from within you. So remember, whether it's time with friends, family, or surfing, it comes from within you. The key is balance. Personally, financially, it's all about balance.